pandemic has done to us as businesses globally. I mean, if you look at the SHRM report, it reported that almost 62% of small businesses have decreased their income because of the pandemic. And now to effectively change and look at other ways of marketing our businesses so that we can actually increase, our income and have more cash flows coming in. And it's very important to actually revisit our marketing strategies as companies globally, and also look at the lockdowns and the pandemic, what it has done to our companies. Today, we've got a powerful, lineup, from, the globe to Africa, in South Africa. We have our dearest sister, Valerie Green, who is from the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, who's responsible for the, green economy value chains, talking to women economic empowerment. Then we have our dearest brother, Eustace Mashimbi, who is the CEO of Proudly South African. And also we have our dearest sister, Diane Mutondo. Am I right, Diane? Am I pronouncing it properly? Yeah, thank you very much. Diane Mutondo from the African Peer Review Mechanism. She's responsible for, gender, a desk, and also she is a gender strategist in that organization. Then we have our dearest sister, who's an advocate based in Lesotho, Advocate Noni Da Silva. And also she's the chairperson for the Circle of Global Business Women in Lesotho. Welcome, our dearest sister. And then we have Ms. Piwa Mzwali, who is an executive at Legacy Motor Group, which is a BE partner to the BMW South Africa. She's responsible for strategy and marketing, and also the chief operating officer for the Legacy Motor Group within, the BE company for BMW South Africa. And welcome our dearest sisters, and dearest sister and a brother as well. It is very important for us to actually acknowledge that the pandemic has really hit us so hard, all of us. I mean, the economies were shut down globally. You saw what happened during the lockdown. A personal experience that I can share as a facilitator, when the president announced the lockdown last year, and I felt like the world was coming to an end, because the first time was like, we can't even go, beyond our boundaries of our own homes. We can't even go outside, and you think, oh God, I've got this vision, I've got all this thing that I want to do. What do I do next? And all of us, we had to change very quickly and very fast, where we connected to social media platforms, where we connected to digital marketing, where we actually looked at what other colleagues are doing in the marketplace. Without wasting my time, I'm definitely going to call our dearest sister, Valerie Green, to be actually the first speaker that you're actually going to actually give us just a global, view on what the pandemic has done, and also take it down to South Africa, where she's working with women on the ground. I'm also participating in those programs as well. Thank you very much, my dear sister. I'm handing over to you.
Thank you, Cindy, and thank you, and good afternoon to all our speakers, and thank you to everyone who will be viewing this recording or be live with us on YouTube. Cindy, I'd love to say that I have all the solutions to offer, but I guess mine is really just going to be to say what I see happening from research that we've done. We're not quite working with women yet. We've done some research, but I think that research perhaps can answer some of the questions. I think your main issue that you've put on the table for us to discuss today is the question of business development and new marketing strategies. And I guess a word that's become very famous during the pandemic is pivoting, because we may have started out thinking we were this, and now we have to be that, and so many other things in between. So I'm going to just start by saying very quickly what I'm doing in the work that I do at UNIDO. And it ties into perhaps where we think the world is headed, given what's happened with the pandemic, but there are also other drivers. So my full title in terms of what I'm coordinating is the Economic Empowerment of Women in Green Industry. And that's driven by the notion that anyway, regardless of the pandemic, there has already been an agreement signed, the Paris Accord Agreement, which has basically committed many countries across the world, probably about 990 countries, to start thinking about how, not to start, to actually move quite fast, and thinking how we do business in a way that is sustainable. And part of that sustainability is to do with reducing carbon emissions. And although I haven't worked directly with small businesses, what I do know is that if you work with big businesses, your client, there is the expectation that you, as a small supplier to that value chain, are going to be providing them with goods or services that speak to their pain. And their pain, as we all know right now, is one of access to energy. It's becoming a very volatile thing. So if you can provide solutions that offer solutions to access to energy, or to help reducing their consumption of energy, or give them alternatives to using energy, that is a very important part of it. Now, of course, women are not part of it as much as we would like to be. So as part of the economic empowerment of women, part of our work is to work very much with government to look at their policies. And we haven't released this report, but I can tell you offhand that the report has already shown us in all the 4 countries that we're working in that government needs to do a whole lot more to plug the gaps in terms of its policies. So women, interestingly, are just missing. The word woman sometimes is missing in some government policies. So that's what we've helped to waken them up to. And a very important finding for us in the work that we've done so far is that even if there are opportunities, and like Department of Energy is an example, where there are opportunities that are coming our way for small power producers, for example, there's a whole lot of things happening there. But the what and the how are the questions that women would be left wondering about. So what I would want to say as part of this discussion is that much as it's robbing us of our income, it has created space and time and opportunity for us to Google the things we don't know, get the knowledge we don't know, to find out what those policies are saying, what are those opportunities that the world is talking about in terms of being more resource efficient, and how can we build that into our offering? How can we build it into our business? And I'm not going to hog the floor because you can always continue this discussion. But if we're talking about our consumers on the one hand as business, I bet most of us are also talking about our consumers as government. Now, the president announced earlier this year that he'd like to see, I think, women take up about 45% of leadership roles. Obviously, leadership, we don't just spring into those positions. So the question I think we all have to ask ourselves is, if we are in leadership positions, how can we foster other women to come with us into those leadership positions? How can we speak to our clients to also look at women being in leadership positions? And how can we sell that in our marketing strategies, that you need women to be part of it, and not just as frontline or fronters for your company, but actively contributing and engaging with you as a partner to get some of that business that the country is pledging as part of those infrastructure opportunities. The last client that I think we must not ignore in the small and medium business sector is the consumer. And I think you'll agree with me that as consumers, we are all buying convenience. So it's actually, as much as it's sometimes a pain that I can't physically come and see you, sometimes it's also a blessing that I got lots of other things I can take care of. And so how do we use this opportunity to access women across the globe, to access webinars, to access information, to change our payment systems and how we do business? How do we use this opportunity that's been provided by being forced to embrace technology where we may not have done? And in doing so, we are reducing our carbon footprint. We are using perhaps less energy because we're not using the fuel on the streets. So we have shifted the business. And I think, but in closing on that particular point, I'm going back to the word convenience. How do we make sure that whatever we're offering as a product or service is done at a level of convenience to the client, if that's a consumer out there, to the public. And because we do have a customer who is very volatile, who's very fickle, and who wants instant gratification. And if I don't get the service I want in the quality and the shape and form that you promised me, then I'm switching very quickly to the next person. So I think I'll stop there for a moment. I will, there's a lot more I'd like to share, but let's take on, I'd like to give over to our other speakers.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, our dearest sister, Valerie. You mentioned a lot of critical things in the space of, the pandemic, and how do women take their rightful positions in terms of leadership, so that women are not just taken as tokens, but at the end of the day, we get the right women to lead such strategies, because we need women that have a backbone during that pandemic. We need women that will stand the test of times. We need women that will stand up for other women, because the Circle of Global Business Women, it's a network that is creating a tribe of women that is supporting each other globally. Here we are, we've got our dearest sister in Lesotho, who is the chairperson for the Circle of Global Business Women. This is who we are globally. And also, we were launched during the pandemic. If I can actually share my story right now, as the president for the Circle of Global Business Women, I welcome all our virtual, partners that are actually listening to this webinar as we speak right now, and those that will be listening it later on. I mean, the Circle was launched during the pandemic. We opened our offices last year on the 1st of July. And I actually launched the Circle on virtual platforms, talking through webinars, being invited in Canada, being invited in the UK. I think it was earlier this year, when I was invited by the French embassy to actually attend the One Planet Summit, which was organized by President Macron in France. I literally walked into the France platform sitting, in my desk in my office, but I was in France. I was operating in France. I was in Paris. And this is the beauty, about COVID, because I didn't have to take a flight and go to Paris and attend the One Planet Summit, but I had to sit and get and be connected and listen to President Macron. One thing that really excited me about the One Planet Summit, it was when Prince Charles was speaking French. All of us, we always think that, English people don't speak French. But, when Prince Charles actually addressed, us at the One Planet Summit, he was speaking French. So with those words, I'd like to say there are really benefits for the COVID-19 when you're looking at your digital marketing strategy, because you get the networks. You don't spend a lot of money to get into a plane and travel and go and present somewhere else in the world. So these are the benefits that the COVID has done. But also, there's one good, acronym that says the secret of change is to focus your energy, not fighting the old, but building the new. And I think this is what we need to do as women moving on, listening to you, my dearest sister Valerie, on how do we pivot to the next level. And also you spoke about customer service, because customer service is very important. You need to inform your customers as a business to say, this is what I'm facing because of the pandemic. I might be closing down certain business units. I might be moving to a smaller offices, because your customers are actually paying your what? Your salaries are actually making your business to be alive and kicking. So it's very important to inform your customers, and even your bankers as well. It's very important to inform your bankers about the next move that you're taking. During this time of the pandemic, we must not run away from our customers. We must not run away from our bankers. But what is important is your customers are your business. Keep them informed in every step that you take. This is what I've taken away from what you have said, our dearest sister Valerie. And also get creative, because it's very important to be creative. Get into the social media platforms and look at what is happening in the social media platforms, because even before coronavirus, if you look at the social media platform was a king. I mean, as from 2019, 79% of Americans have social media profiles. And the number has increased even now. So everybody is now on the social media platforms. So the social media digital marketing is now the new normal vis-a-vis the old traditional marketing style. So I would really encourage all the business people that are listening to this webinar, get into your social media platforms. Look at your websites. Look at LinkedIn. Look at your Facebook page. Look at your Instagram. Look at your Twitter. Please use your social media platforms to promote your business. And it's very important to actually use your social media platforms to actually promote your business. And now I'm looking at what our dear sister has said with the programs that they have within UNIDO. I'd like to call my dear sister, now we're taking it to Africa, my dear sister Diane Mutondo, who is the gender specialist at the African Peer Review mechanism. I love this organization because my dad is one of the founders, President Thabo Mbeki. So it makes me to tickle a little bit, but Dana knows. So, and thank you very much, because it concentrates a lot on corporate governance as well, and how African, African countries are supposed to actually look at their corporate governance mechanisms, and also how do they latch on into this new, tidal wave of, digital marketing, and how do they actually come up in the world stage so that they'll be able to actually market their countries through social media. I've seen some of the countries coming up very strongly, Diane, in the continent, even the African Union, even APR, and you are actually on social media. But how do we come up very strongly? Because everybody's using those platforms. And how do we use it for the benefit? Because we need to actually look at our customers as a source, and we put our, selves in the shoes of our customers, so that when they see whatever we post on social media, it attracts them. Thank you very much, Diane.
Thank you so much for the introduction. It is such an honor and a privilege for me to be here today. So like Cindy mentioned, I work for the African Peer Review Mechanism, but I'm also wearing different hats. I'm a marketer by trade. I'm a researcher in the governance and the gender space, as well as in the media space. I'm also equally an advocate for gender. And I sit on the board of a young company called Impulse Groups. So today I would like to share with you different perspectives, from the governance side, as being an employee of the African Union and particularly the African Peer Review Mechanism. And also, from a private sector side, like being involved with small and medium companies, to some extent, and looking at particularly marketing from the background and the experience that I've had. So I think it goes without a doubt that COVID has impacted all of us, and it has pushed us to think creatively and innovatively about the way we do. It has not only impacted on the private sector, but also on the public sector. Like Cindy was sharing, is that we've had, as the APRM, we've had to do a lot of adjustments. We had to go through some change management and all of that stuff. Which hasn't been easy, but then we've realized one thing is that communication and mostly in the private sector, is that marketing is really a key to the success of an organization, whether you look at it from a private perspective or a public perspective. So from my understanding is that, and from the observation that I could gather, is that I can confirm that for an entity to be able to achieve successfully its objectives, from looking at the APRM, for instance, and looking at also the work that the APRM does in terms of corporate governance, trying to support to some extent the private sector in order to give the private sector the platform to be able to strive. I've gathered just a few key determinants that I would like to share with you. Number one is the continental frameworks and strategic partnerships that businesses need to consider. And this comes from the fact that at APRM, the African Peer Review Mechanism, which is a governance entity of the African Union, we actually value the importance of bringing the private sector on board in terms of policy making, in terms of strategizing the key, strategizing like plans for the private sector to be able to strive in a healthy environment, right? So when we look at I don't know if you are how familiar you are with frameworks such as the Agenda 2063, but most recently the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which has come into force it was first introduced in 2018, but it has fully come into force in 2021, actually this year. And it is important for businesses to understand the importance of those legal continental frameworks and understand how this would actually impact or bring opportunities for small businesses. How does a business basically reinvent itself in the midst of COVID-19, noting the challenges that COVID-19 has brought? And looking at the company which I mentioned that I'm sitting on the board, is that the company managed to adopt a more continental view instead of a regional kind of view by now engaging more with those continental platforms and try to understand actually how does free trade agreement, which in essence is the one market platform basically for that the AU has come up with, eliminating borders for borders for human and trade of goods and services and so on and so forth. How do you, as a small business, start playing into this playground, And these are the things that are being looked into. But then what is going to support that? Obviously, it's the how strong your communication would be about those frameworks. So I'm speaking now from the APRM and more globally the African Union, which is our mother company, our mother organization rather, is that how do now AU works hand in hand with small and medium enterprises so that we create, in essence, a healthy business environment where there's no borders and there's less restrictions, as Africans. And these are the kind of things that will strengthen businesses. And this will also require businesses to build a continental marketing strategy, because a business operating in South Africa will not be limited by borders, meaning that as a business, you should also think, how do I sell my brand in Congo, in the DRC? How do I sell my brand in Chad, where I'm from? How do I sell my brand in Djibouti? And I think this is pushing us to think outside the box in terms of marketers, in terms of private organization, companies, but also public organizations. Is that how do we reach out beyond our borders, the one that we know, that we knew, that we're accustomed of. So this is one thing. And then the other thing also that the APRM has been doing is we've done a lot of work when it comes down to governance, corporate governance specifically. And there is a tool that we have developed, which is essentially a questionnaire. But this question looks at the different governance areas. So we look at the democratic and political governance. We look at the economic governance and management. We look at corporate governance, and we also look at socio-economic development. But what we have introduced recently is a gender questionnaire, which looks now more particularly into those four thematic areas, as we referred to them. But then we also introduced the resilience factor because of COVID-19, is that we're looking at, when it comes down to corporate governance, we're looking at how does the business can strive or can evolve when it's facing adversity. And we've developed a couple of indicators for businesses to interact with. And then from a woman business perspective is that how do women get access to financial support? How do women get access to economic support? Can a woman set up a business, a startup? What are the kind of national frameworks or tools that the government has put in a certain country that actually helps women set up their businesses and so on and so forth. We also look at how free is the media in this country, because once again, we know that as marketers, we need to be able to use a certain level of media. Social media, for instance, some social media is censored in certain countries. How do you, as a company now, communicate a message or build a strategy around the product if you do not have access to the tools to communicate about your brand? And those are the things that we look into this questionnaire, this tool that we've put together, which is very comprehensive, that looks at the different challenges that are governance related, but obviously impact our day-to-days, as a business. And these are the things that we also invite businesses to familiarize themselves with, because those tools are available. They can be approached, or they can be observed from on our website and so on and so forth. But then we have also a process which we implement to make sure that when we go and we conduct country evaluation, we call them reviews, country reviews, then when we meet with businesses, small and medium enterprises, we manage to get information from through these tools, and also, like I mentioned earlier, strategic partnerships are things that should be looked into. We need to look at how do we make our marketing strategy more efficient. If I'm sitting in South Africa, but I want to expand my brand in Kenya, well, why don't we look into building partnerships with local communications house, to leverage our brands? And those are the things that can be facilitated on a policy level, but then also through such platforms, and I think that's where the aspect of networking becomes really, really important. Also, another thing that should be considered, during those difficult times, is like, how do we diversify our portfolio? The company I mentioned to you, where I'm sitting on the board, is called Impulse Groups. It used to only sell mining equipment. Well, guess what? Because of COVID, it had to review its strategy and start selling health and hygiene products. Just so that it could survive. It could survive some challenges. So we have to think on our feet, whether you're a policymaker, whether you are a marketer, whether you are a business owner, and whatsoever. These are the things that we need to take into consideration: flexibility, and in all levels, as I mentioned. And then lastly, is that how do we also keep our marketing strategies innovative? Would you only look at the B2B or B2C approach, or should you expand into a business to government approach? Because social media, to some extent, pushes us to with the all new wave of social media and the discussions around technology and innovation and the policies around it, it is pushing us to to have businesses that will interact more and more with government. There is things that you need to take into consideration should you be a business wanting to interact in the country. So those are the things that we have to look into. The African, lastly, and lastly, the African peer review mechanism also has had to make some adjustment, like I said, And then we had to diversify also our portfolio, looking into just, instead of just doing country reviews, we had to look at, okay, what about governance futures? Governance futures is basically, how do we anticipate certain scenarios? Like, how do we make sure that next time we have a pandemic, let's hope it doesn't happen, but next time we have a similar situation, how do we go about it? So it helps us to think forward and not just respond to the current wave that we are in, but then how do we think forward? How do we foresee challenges coming? And how do we shape our businesses, our marketing strategies, our action plans, and all of that? How does it all come together so that we set stronger foundation, for the future? So I think I will stop here. Thank you so much for the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, our dearest sister, Diane. We really appreciate the partnership that we have with the APRM organization, and send our best regards to the CEO, our dearest brother, Doctor. And also we appreciate, because we have footprints because of, in African countries, because of your organization as the Circle of Global Business Women, because we have understood during the time of testing times of the pandemic that the circle can't do it alone. So when we speak about Africa, we speak about APRM. And here you are, you have connected us with the best of the best in the continent. We have our dearest sister from Lesotho, an advocate as well, who is also, running her own business as an entrepreneur. Just to recap on what you have said a lot of powerful things. First, the 2063 agenda. It's a very important agenda to us as women globally, and also to us as women in the continent. And how do we unpack the 2063 agenda through the implementation of the Africa Free Trade Agreement? I mean, you saw His Excellency Wamgele Mene was one of our guest speakers at the launch of the Circle of Global Business Women. And the Circle of Global Business Women has been invited to sit on the Women Trade Protocol, because we need to unpack the Women Trade Protocol, as you are saying, that we need to actually make sure that women take their rightful positions in terms of trade, in terms of the barriers that we see in the marketplace across the continent, and what is the role for the Circle, and what is the role for the APRM, and also looking at the gender questionnaire that you came up with. I'm glad my dearest brother in Botswana has already ratified it, and he's participating, President Masisi. Thank you very much, and well done. I saw you were in Botswana, dealing with the gender issues, and Botswana is actually leading as well in the continent to make sure that women in government, women in the private sector, they take their rightful positions in the marketplace, like what we are doing here in South Africa. And we really appreciate the steps that have been taken by President Ramaphosa and President Masisi and other presidents, in the continent, to make sure that women take their rightful positions. But also just to talk about the implementation, because it's very important, our dearest sister Diane, to really unpack, because there are different women, status quo in the marketplace, because you've got the women traders that go up and down every now and then. You've got the Cindy's that sit in the office. And when you talk about the implementation, it actually belongs to the traders on the ground. And now that's very important for us to acknowledge that and understand that. And how do we make sure that they participate and come up very strongly, because that's what resilience is all about. I see these women all the way from Tanzania to South Africa, to Lesotho, to Botswana, and they don't get tired. They get their ornaments, and their ornaments are sold, and they actually, build, families through what they get. But now, where do we go from here? How did Sister D? So thank you very much with the powerful, but also, I think it's very important as well for us as the Circle to assist the women to come up with a digital marketing strategy, so that they'll be able to market their products in a one platform, in the marketplace, so that they'll be able to actually take, charge and take control of the new normal, which is the digital marketing strategy. But they can't do it alone. Those that have seen the light, some of us must actually help them to actually bring their products to the marketplace, so that they'll be able to be showcased in one platform, in an African way, in a continental way, so that they'll be able to actually sell their products. Before I move now to our dearest brother in South Africa, who's going to also unpack the trade-related matters, but I'd like to hand over to our dearest sister, Advocate Noni da Silva from Lesotho, who's an entrepreneur, who's an advocate admitted in South Africa as well, and also in the Lesotho bar. So we are actually honored and humbled to have you, our dearest sister, to be one of our speakers today as the chair for the Circle of Global Business Women. But today you're just going to speak, as an entrepreneur. Just tell us, how did you thrive in your business, and what makes your business to tick in Lesotho? And how did we connect? Because that's very important as well, as women, to talk about that connection, which is going to actually make us to connect with other women globally. Thank you very much, Advocate.
Thank you very much, President. It's a pleasure and an honor to be part of this panel. Thank you so much for the invitation. Briefly, I met you, and it was by sheer coincidence, but I always find that God always put the right people in the right places. We met way back in 2018 while I was attending a conference, and I was one of the guest speakers. It was business related, and that is where we met. And from there on, we connected, and you introduced me to this amazing organization that is doing so much for women and business around the globe. I have seen you from the beginning, because it started last year around March, the same time that we had this crisis, but you persevered, you thrived, you collaborated, you networked with everyone in the marketplace. You made us one global village, and really there are no borders when it comes to business. And I think the topic of today is quite important, because we are experiencing the same difficulty at the same time. I always say that it is rare for one person or for the whole world to be experiencing the same thing. So I think it is quite important that indeed we are in a crisis. I think that no one has ever predicted this. Yes, it happened in 1918, but we were never prepared. So it is time for us. Yes, it has all the negatives and also their positives. I think if we look closely, the pandemic has impacted big and small companies alike. Unfortunately, even the big companies are under pressure. They are restructuring, they are laying off people. Some are actually even closing down. To my surprise, when the pandemic started last year, very big companies were closing their doors. And to me, I was actually afraid of the little companies that are actually trying to make it day by day. But basically what we need to do is to be resilient. So the resilience that you're talking about is true. We need to have that thick skin and know that tomorrow is going to be bright. And also from Diane, I think her presentation really challenged or gave us a lot to think about, relating to strategic partnership from our consumers to our government, because we cannot do this alone. So as a business person, you need the government to formulate policies that will enable you to operate, that will really, when we talk about the free trade area, that you can have access to. Because if you are a lady who's sitting there weaving her Basotho hats, you don't even know that there is a market that can actually buy your wares. So you need your ministries of small businesses, you need your chambers of commerce. You need your government to make policies that make that accessible. You need your financial institutions to give you money so that you can produce at a larger scale, so that you can sell your produce to the rest of the world. So this is quite interesting. Yes, social media is quite important. It is where I realized that everybody's there. And even in the presentation, we want convenience. I think what we have now become accustomed to as a result of the crisis is to get things from the comfort of our home. So for businesses that are still open, we have to be innovative. Try to find out what can make my consumer, who is now become accustomed to working from home, shopping from home, schooling from home, for my products to go to where she is or where he is. So I think that agility, flexibility is quite important in business, so that we can go to the drawing board time and time again and relook our marketing strategies and basically even the whole structure of our business. Because I realized that as a lawyer, I was a bit stereotyped. My work is going to court. I don't have to do anything about social media, even webinars. But I realized that ever since the pandemic, I can consult anybody in the world. I can talk to President. I can talk to Diana. I can talk to anybody. I can offer my services not only in Lesotho. So the crisis has really opened my eyes to the possibilities. Because before then, I just knew I had an office and I'm here. But as for now, I am actually thinking that my office is everywhere. I can have an office virtually in America. So I think the crisis really has opened our minds, and I think we have to be very comfortable with having an open mind. Because at the end of the day, if we close our minds, literally even our businesses will be closed. So this is a great opportunity that I'm part of such an amazing organization, the Circle of Global Businesswomen, and it is a privilege that in Lesotho we have access to such an organization, and we are going to work from here and grow business, grow women, and the opportunities that we are accessing through the platform. Thank you so much, President.
Thank you very much, Advocate. I'm told that you are working towards the launch, working with government in Lesotho and working with His Majesty's office. We're really humbled and honored and looking forward to the launch. And now you mentioned two critical things, because in business, if you don't have agility and flexibility, you are wiped out. So it's very important for you to adjust to change all the time. That's why in most corporate organizations, they always talk about management of change, transformation. You know, when I was an executive in some of these corporate companies, in my earlier years, I'm getting old now, you know, we used to attend a lot of management, you know, of change workshops, and I'll sit there and understand already I'm flexible, but the fact that my colleagues have not yet reached the stage of understanding where they are going and what they're supposed to do, and now I'm supposed to sit and also be part of that session. So I really, you know, learned a lot that for any company to transform, for any company to move forward, is to actually be flexible and also have that, you know, agility. It's very important, and also resilience in the marketplace, because it's very important to be resilient and stand the test of times, so that you'll be able to actually, survive the storm in the marketplace. Without wasting my time, and thank you very much, Advocate, for this powerful, submission on what you have done as an advocate and the work that you're doing in Lesotho, and also working with South Africa. We're really humbled to have a woman entrepreneur with you that actually, showcase that resilience and agility and flexibility, because one thing that really made me to understand that COVID doesn't have borders was to actually make myself not to have borders through technology, so that I'll be able to go to France without a passport, but through technology, I'll be able to attend sessions globally without my passport. So that's what the COVID has done, because it's got its own benefits as well. We much as maybe we can complain about what it has done to our economies, but I think for some of us, for a lot of women in the marketplace, it has taught us what is technology. You know, when COVID started, I didn't know how to use Zoom. When COVID started, I didn't even know how to use Microsoft Teams, because there were times where I'll log in and I can't even, you know, switch on my video, and I'll speak without switching on my video. Now, I can't say I don't know, because I'm in an international platform. So it was quite amazing. So without wasting my time, now from, you know, global markets to the African markets, now we're calling our brother, the CEO of Proudly South African, who is a proudly South African himself, who is actually responsible for South African products in the continent, globally, and also who's actually looking at making sure that all women entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs in South Africa, their products are actually traded anywhere else in the world through the Proudly South African. Thank you very much, Mr. Eustace Mashimbi. Doliwu.
I can. Good afternoon. Thank you, Program Director. Good afternoon to everyone who's on the call. As introduced, my name is Eustace Mashimbi, and I'm from Proudly South African. I'm in the company of phenomenal women today. I'm the thorn amongst the roses. What a privilege. Thank you for the honor. I feel like I'm temporarily in some polygamist kind of relationship. So thank you very much. The request that came through, I think, was quite heartwarming for us, because we were given an opportunity to talk to women in business, but mostly about access to markets opportunities, which is what we are about as Proudly South African. But maybe let me give a bit of context in the interest of time and get straight into the access to market opportunities that we have. But what Proudly South African is a buy local campaign, and it's a global phenomenon. This buy local culture and this the phenomenon of trying to get those who make purchasing decisions to buy local exists all over the country. It exists all over the world, rather. It exists in different parts of the world. There's one for Australia. In fact, Proudly South African was modeled around the Australian-made campaign. There is a campaign that I'll use as a case study today, which is the United States of America. There is one for the UK, there's one for the Philippines. So buy local campaigns exist for countries, regions, and in some instances, even for towns. And even on the African continent, the motherland, you do have countries that have now embarked on this journey to establish their own buy local campaigns in order to grow their economies, to ensure that in instances where there are certain products that they produce themselves, they can mobilize those who buy in those economies to buy local. And Zambia is one example. Swaziland, Malawi, Zimbabwe. We've had conversations with Mauritius who are exploring setting up their own, same as Tunisia. So it is a global phenomenon, and like I said, the US is a good case study in that as far back as 1933, they introduced the Buy American Act. They followed it up with the Buy America Act in 1982. And issued an improvement to that act in 2017. So they even have legislation that dates back to almost 90 years ago now. And because where they are able to produce anything, they prefer that within the borders of that country, that which is consumed is that which they make themselves. And even the new president that came in a few months ago, President Biden, within the first week of coming into office, he signed executive orders into law, and which basically stipulate that anyone within the federal government who buys specific products has to buy them locally. When he gave an address to the joint houses, when he spoke to the Senate and the Congress sometime in April, he again reconfirmed the need for them to focus on local procurement. That is why the trade wars between the US and China are so well documented. They are driven by the need to protect industries within the US. The US is the one that is fighting off Chinese products from coming in the same way that they were in the past. because their view is that if they're able to make it themselves, why should they bring it in from outside? Because that way they protect industries, retain the jobs that are in those industries, and create much needed new jobs. Because how buy local campaigns work is that as demand increases, those who are able to produce and meet that demand can retain the jobs that they have, and in the process might need to create much needed new jobs. And so in response to these three challenges that South Africa has, which is, unemployment being the biggest one, and it breeds the growth in poverty, as well as the growing inequality between the haves and the have-nots. Proudly South African was then introduced back in 1998 after a jobs summit was convened by the then President Nelson Mandela to try and come up with ways to create jobs within the economy and to retain existing jobs. And so it was agreed that a buy local campaign will be formed. And in 2001, Proudly South African opened its doors, and it focuses on four main areas. One is to drive up procurement in the public sector, so anything that is bought by any organ of state and in government in general, that if they buy those items that are designated, they must buy them locally. So we focus on that drive to educate procurement officials, to help them correct tenders where they come up without those provisions that will exclude imports from being delivered to government. We do a lot of work in the private sector because there's no legislation that forces the private sector to buy local. So you have to appeal to their sense of economic patriotism and ask that they ring-fence some items and buy them locally. So we tour the country, and we use technology now, like my sister said, to engage corporates to try and get them to buy local. And we're seeing a lot of traction over the past couple of years, and localization is now at the heart of the recovery of the economy. And so we are getting a lot of positive feedback from the private sector. We also have a responsibility to educate the general public about the importance of buying local. And so we roll out consumer education campaigns. And lastly, we are meant to promote accessibility of locally made products by ensuring that we have databases of local products and services that can be made available to anyone and everyone who wants to buy local. And the question always comes up as to, how do you make sure that companies use their logo on their products, identify themselves on their collateral, on their letterhead, and everything that they put out as members of Proudly South African. We vet them, and they have to tick these four boxes. The first one being that the product has to be made within the borders of South Africa, and thereby contain sufficient local content. So raw materials and components and everything that is needed as inputs into making that product must be sourced locally. But in instances where those raw materials or components are not available in the country, even if it is bought from outside, they need to be converted into the final product within the borders of South Africa, so that jobs are created throughout that value chain. And the second aspect that we look at is quality. The first speaker spoke about the importance of quality. My sister Valerie spoke about the importance of quality, that customers buy a product or come to you for a service because they expect it to meet certain needs. So if the quality is not right, the need for which the product is required or for which the service is required will not be met. And so we look at what is prescribed in that industry for that specific product or service, and whether you tick all those boxes, and we then only accredit your membership after that. The two are softer issues, but are important. Companies that affiliate with us have to help us preserve the environment. So those green economy practices that you spoke about earlier on, Valeria, are important. We have to make sure companies recycle and reuse material where possible, dispose of waste responsibly, and implement some of those sound environmental practices. Lastly, they have to treat their workers fair and comply with the labor legislation of the country. So my topic in the next 3 minutes, I'll sum it up, is that we are meant to open up markets, access opportunities for those who tick those boxes and are able to become members of Proudly South African and sit on our database. So government has designated all these items that you see on the screen. So if they buy at any point any of these items or any of those items which fall within this category of products and industries, they have to buy them locally. A quick example of something that we all know of are textile, clothing, leather, and footwear sector. So any of the items that are bought by government, if they fall within that space, they have to be bought locally. Another good example is furniture. If any entity of the state wants to buy furniture, desks for schools, beds for hospitals, office furniture for some of their offices, they have to buy them from local producers. So in this regard, Proudly South African focuses on the 27 sectors that they've designated. We look out for procurement opportunities. We have set up a system, an algorithm that helps us track every single tender issued by government in that space. We track those tenders and we identify local manufacturers that sit in our books that are in a position to can respond to those tenders. We send the tenders to them. And while sending the tenders to the entities that are then able to bid for those tender opportunities because they are local producers who sit in our books, we also assist the state to correct the tenders where the tenders don't come out with a provision that will exclude imported items. And so what you then emerge out of this process with is that government then buys locally made products. So that is what we do in this space. We ensure that government buys locally made products, but as a member of Policy African, as a local producer, you would access those opportunities. We go into the private sector and we look out for localization commitments. And the base of companies that we take to the private sector are these vetted members who have been vetted, most importantly, for quality and local content. You know that the private sector has this view that if a company is new, if it's a new entrant in that industry, if no one has ever bought from them, or if they have not bought from them themselves, they can't necessarily trust that they will deliver on time, that the quality will be right, etc. And so we give them the assurance that they can buy from these companies because, one, they're supporting the economy of the country because the products are locally made, but the quality will be right. So going to the private sector, we ask them to give us local procurement commitments by identifying items or products within their value chains, consumables, raw materials, etc., that they can buy locally. We then identify companies in our books that can supply that specific product. So let's say the ring-fenced item is office furniture. We've gone to the banks, we've asked them to give us a commitment for them to buy locally made furniture. The banks have now started committing. We then take that opportunity and we make it available to those companies that affiliate with us. So once, let's say Bank X wants to buy furniture for its branch in the Free State, in Bloemfontein, we then make available all those companies that are in that area that make office furniture in that area so that the bank can then buy from them. We've also introduced a market access portal, a MAP in short, and that is where the corporates can register themselves, list the commitments that they have made, identify the products that they've made. The suppliers can also list themselves so that the buyers, if you use my example of the banks, the buyer from the bank can easily then find the supplier that they're looking for, because if you go there and you do a search, you will find only locally made products on the platform. In fact, what we've done now is we're developing the system to a point where when we launch it at the end of this month, corporates can even advertise tenders only to that close community of local producers. And so the private sector will then also be in a position to can then buy locally made products. We then undertake a process of ensuring that we monitor those procurement spend so that we can then start reporting on how much of it has benefited local producers and what the impact is on the GDP, on economic growth, and on job creation. We've also created portals. During this COVID-19 period, we've had a lot of suppliers who said, we are making masks, we're making disinfectants and sanitizers and detergents, and some are now even making medical PPE, so your hospital gowns, your aprons, your sterile gloves, and a lot of these items that are utilized during this period in response to COVID-19. And these companies were saying, but the private sector is not buying from us. All these items are leaving the country. And so what we did is we created this portal. We are housing all these products. So all of you who are business people, if you want to buy for your businesses, go into the Proudly SA site, go to the COVID-19 page, and there are portals for each of these items that you see on there. You can go in, find a supplier within your town, within your province, buy from them and support the local economy and ensure that in the process, you are supporting locally made businesses, locally made products. But as a supplier of all of these, engage with us, write to us, info@proudlysa.co.za. We will help you register your product also on there, because we go out to the private sector, we market this portal so that anyone who's buying within this space buys locally made products. As I conclude, I focus on consumers. We have an online store that only sells locally made products, and anyone who wants to buy local on an online platform can go on to rsamade.co.za. All the products that you find on there are products that are locally made, and it is meant to rival all these other online shopping platforms that you come across. And the differentiator with this one is that every time you buy on there, you know that you're buying a locally made product. Outside of COVID, we have consumer education drives that help ensure that consumers choose locally made products every time they buy. We do this at malls, at festivals, at universities. We work with the unions as part of our labor mobilization program. We do it at sporting events. We buy space at consumer expos for our members to go and exhibit for free. We run online competitions using member products so that consumers can then be exposed to those products that are locally made. We do a lot of consumer advertising, all in the name of ensuring that we support locally made products. In conclusion, we have rolled out a campaign called Game Time, and in rolling out this campaign between August and December last year, we utilized these platforms that you see. We had TV commercial partners, we had digital platforms that we utilized, where the aim of the campaign was to show South Africans the economic impact and the importance of buying locally made products. And that ad is themed around the sporting game, where if you think of a typical soccer game as an example, if the team is not doing well in the first half, at halftime they go and regroup such that in the second half they come back and do better. And that's what we said about the economy of South Africa. The economy was already in trouble even before we went into the hard lockdown. Before we were hit by the pandemic, we were already losing jobs. The economy was not growing. We were already in a recession. We had been downgraded by all these agencies, the rating agencies, that is. And so we're saying, let's use that hard lockdown that we went through as an opportunity to pause and reflect and come back better. And that has been touched on a lot, to say we have to do things differently. The pandemic has given rise to some opportunities. Let's seize them. And the opportunity that we want everyone to seize within the economy of South Africa is to say, that was like the halftime when we went into the hard lockdown. As we emerge out of that lockdown and we go into the second half, where we have an opportunity to do things differently. Let's buy local. Let's support the business down the road. As a business person, you want people to buy from you, buy from the business next to you, because you can have the best business with the best systems and processes and have access to financing, which remains a problem for a lot of entrepreneurs. But if no one walks through the doors of your business to buy the product that you have or to take up the service that you're rendering, it defeats the purpose and you will close that business faster than you have set it up. And so it's about saying you want other people to buy from you, buy from them. This community of business people. I mean, I like the name of this this organization, Circle of Global Business Women. The circle of business women must buy from each other. Buy locally made products in your value chain. Make sure that the raw materials that you buy are helping keep someone employed, because we all know someone who's not employed in our homes, in our families, in our churches, in the communities that we live. We can see we live in a country where 11 million of our 59 million people who live within this country are unemployed, if you look at the expanded definition of unemployment. So it's important to do things differently. So let me play the ad as I conclude, and I will give out my details so that anyone who wants to work with us and access these opportunities can then join us.
The second half is about to begin. We need to change the scoreboard. It's time for all of us to pause and rethink the game plan in order to save the future. I call on all of us to be game changers, because greatness isn't reserved only for some people. By buying local, we're choosing to create jobs and sustain the ones we have. Time and time again, South Africans have taken destiny into their own hands, creating products that the rest of the world wanted to buy. See, the world remembers about us, what we sometimes forget. But it's time for change. Let's all buy local. It's game time. Zanzi.
Local is lekker.
Your everyday decisions shape our future.
And that's my presentation, Program Director. There's perception out there that it's expensive to be a member of Paris Healthcare, and it's not. It's only 500 rands per annum for SMMEs and only 100,000 rands for companies with a turnover of 100 million rands and more, and that's per annum. And so it's not expensive. For anyone who wants to join Proudly South African, info@proudlysa.co.za, 011 327 7778. Engage us, talk to us, and we will help ensure that you can access the opportunities. Thank you very much, Program Director. I appreciate the platform.
Thank you very much, our dearest brother. Indeed, the only man amongst women. It's the Circle of Global Business Women. We work with men to achieve the generation equality forum strategy so that, in the near future, we have an equal society, because it's very important, as you know, my brother Eustace, that we can't always be pushing women agenda, women agenda, women agenda. And even men will end up complaining, not understanding what is this women agenda all about. Even in our homes, even in the corporate environment, because we need to actually take and tag men along so that they'll be able to actually push us as well as our brother. Hence, you are here today to showcase who is the Circle of Global Business Women, because leadership doesn't have gender. You know the story. So we need you to push us and go up there in the marketplace and take our rightful position. And I think, yes, the second half is about, to happen. But also, I think what is important for me as the Circle of Global Business Women is the connection. We always say we network, we connect, and we collaborate, because that's what COVID has taught us globally. There's absolutely nothing that we can do as the Circle of Global Business Women without the proudly South African. And also to our members that are actually, listening at the moment, and to our virtual partners that are listening to the moment, please go to the Proudly South African website and connect so that you'll be able to become a member. One thing that I like about an association is that you get information that you cannot get anywhere else. Because when you have a Proudly South African product, there's one thing, my brother, that he didn't mention. When you become a Proudly South African member, they assist you to promote your product globally. You don't have to do anything. You fold your arms, they take your product to the marketplace. And that's one thing which is very powerful about Proudly South African. And hence the Circle of Global Business Women is a strategic partner to the Circle of Global Business Women. And also, if you look at the first slide that he started with, he says, think globally and act locally. We are thinking globally as we're sitting in this platform, but we're acting locally in our own areas, which is South Africa, which is the continent. Diane, we've spoken about the continent. Advocate Da Silva was spoken about Lesotho. We are localizing, but what we're saying is what is coming from the local markets must be ready for what? For the global markets, but it must be quality, is what our dearest sister Valerie has said, because we need to produce quality in the global markets. And thank you very much, my dearest brother. Looking forward working with you. And I had a question on how they connect with you, but already you've just said that, so I'm not going to ask you that question. But I'm looking forward to work with you in the near future, where we can have such, networks, seminars, and programs, and take our women and understand 500 Rand, it's nothing compared to the information that you're going to get at the Proudly South African. This is where now we are talking about, networking, because networking is very important. If you're not networking, we're not working, because you won't be able to meet our dearest brother, Eustace Mishimbi, if you are not part of the Circle of Global Business Women. There's something nice about networks. There's something nice about associations. And with that, wasting my time, because now we are really, talking about, South Africa, but also at the same time, we're thinking globally and acting locally. There's a dearest sister of mine, the chairperson for the Circle of Global Business Women automotive, sector industry within the Circle of Global Business Women, who's an executive at Legacy Motor Group, where she's actually the B partner to BMW South Africa. So she plays two roles at the Legacy Motor Group and BMW South Africa. And she's a very powerful woman. And also, I'd like to give an opportunity as a member for the Circle of Global Business Women, just to talk us through with the motor sector industry and how did she do it? How is she doing it differently? Because if you look at her, the energy levels that she has, people think, I have energy, but when you're looking at her energy is higher than mine. Thank you very much, Spew. I'm handing over to you, my sis. Please unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, President. Okay, the energy is not that much. It's not as big as Cindy's energy. Nevertheless, now I will be talking about the BMW brand itself, because that's what I know. Okay. When it comes to motor industry, it's quite easier, most especially where I am at the moment, which is BMW, because this is the brand that you actually don't sell, it sells itself, right? So what is important is to make sure that you guide the clients in the right way. You make sure that you're giving them the good advice, because when you do your need analysis right from the beginning, the client will never leave you. When the client is coming looking for a brand, for a certain car, you should know why is this person buying this car? And if the person is not aware or is not sure, it is your responsibility to see to it that the customer is leaving out of the dealership with the right brand, with the right vehicle, with the right car, which is a practical vehicle for the client. Okay, I've seen Sis Cindy talking, or head Sis Cindy talking about the prospecting, talking about coaching the client, and talking about the social media platform. BMW has created a platform you call Buy BMW Online, which is the client can easily log in and check whatever that you want in your comfort, within your comfort of your home, in your house. And then in that way, as soon as you select a dealership, that specific dealership is able to communicate with you to say what you want without you walking into the dealership. So doing the right things from the beginning, it makes things easier, because if you've been in the industry for some time and then you've been doing what is right before the COVID, you're not supposed to struggle much now, because you are not going to implement anything new now. You will just be continuing with what you are normally doing or what you used to do. What I've realized about customers, they actually buy from the people of whom they trust. So if you build that relationship from the beginning and you make sure that whatever you are doing it because you are a client yourself. Whenever you're servicing a client, you need to always put yourself in a client's position. Be that client that you are servicing. Be that client that is buying a car. So if you are giving a client a certain deal, you need to ask yourself, will you take that deal if it was yourself? Will you take that car if it was you buying that car? So now that there's COVID, people, they are buying from people of whom they trust, because they are so, I don't want to use the word stingy. They think twice before they make any financial commitments. They want to make sure that they are not going to be spending more than what they are spending. And then in most cases, you get clients that will say, I want to trade in this car, but I want to get something that is still within the motor plan, something that I wouldn't be paying more than what I'm paying. You cannot actually crush the person and say, how do you pay the same thing on a newer car, whereas you're paying an older car? But you need to walk that road with the client. If the client trusts you, would even buy whatever that you are giving to the client, because he knows for sure, or she knows for sure, that whatever you're presenting to that client is the right thing. So I was talking to the other colleague of mine earlier to say, you know what? I used to brag by saying, I do not sell a BMW, it sells itself. But this time around, because people, they want you to sell to them, because a car is actually a necessity. It's not something that you want to have it, it's something that you should have it. So now you need to go to a position whereby you will be selling to this client, but you should be giving the right advice to a client. When you see that it's actually going to dig deeper, and then you're not sure if this person will cope, or the client is not sure if she wants to buy now or not, you need to say, okay, think about it. The fact that the client trusts you, the fact that the client can see that you are not forcing the client into buying this car, will definitely come back to you after she or he has done thinking and making the right decision to say, this is what I'm buying. We need to coach them. You need to remind the client at the time you're buying, how was the deal structure of your car that you are trading in? If the client doesn't remember that, you need to make sure that she remembers yours when she needs to trade in that car. In that way, you will never lose the client. So you need to change few things. We are faced by a challenge that we cannot run away from. So if this is how you've been doing things, so you need to be original. Clients, they want to buy from people of whom they trust. They want to spend their money with the people that they trust the most. And they refer other clients to you. And the other thing is, You also have to, what I've seen the most that is working is to involve yourself with community projects, involve yourself with charities, be on their faces. They must not forget you. Whenever they think about your brand, whenever they see your brand, they must see you within that brand. So if, like, for instance, you talk about BMW, where I'm from, which is Rustenburg, they know that you are talking about Siphiwo. So that if it happens that another car, which is not a BMW, I always see to it that I hide the car, because I'll be asked so many questions. Why are you driving this car? Are you no longer BMW? So I make sure, even if I'm met by the robot, I'm with a client, I'll make sure that I'm not parking parallel to that client, because I don't want that person to see me because I'm that brand. So even if now the friends wants to buy the car, they always come back to me to say, Siphiwo, somebody will be here and will be looking for the car. To a point whereby you realize that you become, as soon as they trust you, you actually become their financial advisor. Whether you are accredited or not, you should know that, because they will firstly consult you with whatever that they want to buy. Even if it's another brand now, it's not a BMW, they will come back to you to say, look for this car, because you have won the heart of that client. I always say money deals with emotions. And if you respect that part, you'll always get it right, because the client will always feel respected when you respect the money. When you bring transparency in whatever deal structure you're making for the client, to say, listen, this is how I got here, this is where I'm from, the client will always remember your voice. So if you have that clientele base and you make sure that you respect them, you'll never lose it. Whatever you do, you make sure that you put them first. You always, because I always say, I am the client by all means. From the service, when the client wants to book the service, they book their service from me. When they're thinking of changing the brand, they always think, okay, I'm going to change the brand, I'm going somewhere else, and then will I get this kind of a service? Will I get this thing that now I'm going home in the next 2 days, I forgot to book for the service? Let me quickly call Siphiwo. Siphiwo will make a plan, and she will make a plan, trust me, because I am that client. I will end there, President. Thank you.
Wow. You know, when I was listening to Siphiwo, listening right from the beginning, when our dearest sister Valerie spoke, Diane spoke, our brother Eustace, and our sister Noni, you were consistent, very consistent about, quality, and also how do you deliver services to the marketplace. And the most important one that our dearest sister Siphiwo spoke about, it's a brand. You are a brand yourself. You eat, you sleep the brand. When you walk into a boardroom, when you walk into a virtual meeting, people must see that you are alive, so that what you're talking about, they buy it. From the virtual meetings, like what Siphiwo is doing now, selling BMW. I mean, I no one would really not want to drive a BMW. My brother Eustace, I mean, you can really see her, the passion that she has. She eats and sleeps the brand. And I think it's very important as well for us as women and even as business people to understand that you are a brand on your own. So you must eat and sleep a brand so that your brand is existing in the marketplace. So this is actually very powerful for me, Siphiwo, what you have just said in terms of actually respecting your clients. So if you're not respecting your clients, you will never sustain your company, because your clients are actually bringing money into your organization. So you're not supposed to actually get money from your orders, and the next thing you go again and go to Diamond, walk in Sandton and buy those Louis Vuitton. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, I'm going to say is it is. That money doesn't belong to the Louis Vuitton shop in Sandton City. It belongs to your business. You need to reinvest in your business. And once you have cash in reserve, then you can walk into the Louis Vuitton shop in Sandton. So it's very important, simple things, financial management, financial literacy for small businesses, for women-owned entities. And I think that's why most of the companies crash in the middle stages of going up, because we tend to invest in ourselves a lot and not invest into the organization in terms of expansion. So it's very important to actually take cognizance on what our speakers are actually saying today in this platform, to make sure that we grow our businesses. Look, we love Louis Vuitton, but there are stages where you cannot even think of Louis Vuitton running an organization. You'll think about Louis Vuitton later when you have made reserves in your organization or in your company. But if you're actually going to take the little that you have and run to Diamond Walk in Sandton, the next thing, staff members don't have money for salaries. The next thing, you're running left, right, and center, you don't know how to maintain your business. Now, this is the time of actually making sure that you guard your cash flow. This is the time to make sure that you are flexible. You look at what is happening in the marketplace. How do you survive the storm? How do you come up with a critical, powerful, digital marketing strategy that would make your organization to be sustainable in the marketplace? But I think what is important for me in this, webinar of actually marketing and networking and showcasing our products, because what I saw with Proudly South African, they have a digital platform where everybody who is actually selling the product, they go to that digital platform. And I think it's very important for us as well to look at these angles as companies, as women-owned entities, as the Circle of Global Business Women. We're actually looking at that platform as well, where we're going to showcase our women-owned products in the marketplace globally. And it's very important. What this webinar has come up with, it's very important because it actually looked at how do you optimize our businesses, especially with websites in terms of mobility, where you can even look at your websites actually doing transactions, because that's very important. And also, how do you create a valuable content that will be attractive to your audience, to your clients in the digital marketing space, which is very important. And how do we engage online, with communities, with forums, attending these webinars, because the webinars are actually an eye-opener. So when you start attending a webinar, you get more information. For example, if you didn't know anything about Proudly South African, but today Proudly South African exists. Proudly South African is not expensive for you to be a member. You only pay 500 rands. So it's very important to actually make sure that you are gallivanting in social media platforms, getting information, empowering yourself, understanding what is happening in the marketplace. I tell you, when I was listening to but Eustace presenting, South Africa is alive with possibilities. If you actually look at where Proudly South African is coming from as a state-owned entity, driven by him as an individual, I salute and honor you, my brother, because you come a long way with what Proudly South African is as your baby. And I really, really respect you, because what has been showcased here today, it's really excellence. This is Black excellence at its best, where now as South Africa, we are proud to showcase our products globally, in the continent, in the marketplace. And I think it's very important for us as well today, to all our virtual, partners and also our members that are listening, that you must actually register to be a Proudly South African member, so that you are endorsed in the marketplace, so that when your product now is going to, in the marketplace, or in terms of the Africa Free Trade Agreement, when it comes to trade, it's going to be easy for you to be endorsed. So I think for me, this information today is very powerful, was a very powerful information sharing platform, where we're looking at connecting again with our members, connecting again with our virtual partners globally, to actually make sure that we come together. One other thing that is very important for us as the Circle of Global Business Women is to actually make sure that women take their rightful positions in terms of leadership. But also, the reason why we were launched during the pandemic was to actually make sure that women women come together so that we'll be able to support women, we'll be able to work together as women. And this is what we are doing at Eustace, because that's the reason why it's called a circle. We are a circle. We are not in competition with a women organization, but we embrace all the women organizations globally and continentally. We actually look at what they are doing and how do we, become a solution to their challenges in the marketplace, but also assisting them in their programs. If you look at us as the Circle of Global Business Women, the chairperson for ICT Charter, she's running her own women entity called the Women Chamber of Commerce, based in Mpumalanga. So she's actually a member for the Circle of Global Business Women. We've got Princess Debbie Raputi, who is the president for the Worldwide Women Leading Change in Africa. She's a member for the Circle of Global Business Women. So it's a network of women globally that are actually looking at coming together and working together and making sure that we push the agenda of women empowerment, we push the agenda of leadership, we push the agenda of innovation in the marketplace. And just to talk about two things before I hand over to our distinguished speakers, just to give words of wisdom before we sign off today. I'd like to actually thank the French Embassy, our sponsor, and also our strategic partner, the French South African Chamber of Commerce for Eustace. Now we are partnering with them. We're coming up with a program where we're going to be mainstreamed, looking at committees where we're going to serve as the Circle of Global Business Women in those committees. And also we're coming up with seminars. I will approach you later on where we look at, coming up with 4 sectors that are critical in the marketplace, where we'll drive those seminars to see how do we really make sure that women are mainstreamed in those 4 sectors in the economy, so that women can actually drive the leadership agenda and also the empowerment agenda. Because I think we started with Beijing 25 years ago, and now we're talking about the generation equality as well forum at the same time, and we're still in the platform, we're still driving this women agenda. But at the end of the day, we want to take cognizance that yes, we have seen that there are women that are coming up in the marketplace. For example, our UN Women Executive Director, Dr. Phumzile Mlambo Ngcuka, she's based in New York. She's actually a woman of influence, heading that position globally. So there are strides that we can really pat ourselves in the shoulder and say, yes, we've done something in terms of women empowerment. We look at our dearest sister, Dr. Ngozi, the first Women Director General for the Women Trade Organization. You talk about our dearest sister in Tanzania, the first, woman president in Tanzania. Here in South Africa, we have our first, woman DG. In the presidency itself, DG Baleni. So we have a lot that we can talk about. In other countries and globally, we have seen women coming up in the corporate ladder. We have seen women coming up in the positions of influence. But we are saying that we need to push as well and make sure that we have more women coming up in these positions. And hence we're having these seminars, because these webinars are webinars that are actually for networking. These webinars are webinars for information sharing. These webinars are webinars to actually open your eyes so that you don't sit in your corner or you're operating from home, you've closed down your office, but you've got the Circle of Global Business Women that will give you tips of actually, pivoting to the next level. How do you take your business to the next level during the pandemic? But how do you prepare for post-pandemic? Because I think that is very important. There's something called, the master students know that, there's something called the Blue Ocean Strategy. How do you come up with your own product that is existing in the marketplace during these testing times, where you provide a solution in the marketplace, where you don't have a competition? We've got some young women in the global space that have done that. The French Embassy is facilitating a Blue Ocean, economy awards. We have I've seen, two, awardees that were awarded, and one is a South African, young woman who is based in Pretoria, who's doing something amazing in the water treatment sector. He's actually doing something that is not provided by anyone in the marketplace. So the pandemic has actually brought the best, out of other people. I mean, we have a very good example as well. One of our young women who came and spoke in our launch, who's now doing, art through the wool and nails. She did our Circle Global Business Women logo, but she was a beautician. After being hit by anxiety, she realized that she's got a skill, but today she's the best of the best. She's actually trading globally. She's receiving orders left, right, and center because she's doing something unique that is not done by other artists in the marketplace. So there is hope within, the pandemic. So I love the saying that says, arise and shine. There's power in the storm. So you must not always concentrate on the challenges that you have, but you must think ahead and make sure that the solutions that you come up with is the solutions that make you to actually, be very light in the storm, so that you get out of the storm very strong, so that you get out of the storm being powerful. With those words, I'd like to say thank you very much to our listeners who are at home, who are actually sitting in their offices, who are driving their cars, and we're really humbled and honored to be part of this great network globally. Before I sign off, I'd like to actually start with my dear sister Valerie to actually, give us words of wisdom. What advice can she actually give us moving forward?
All right, so thank you very much, President. I think that I've been coming up with a whole lot of C's. It's always good to use an alphabet, so you can continue the C's beyond me. But I think drawing from what everyone said, I think we need to be reminded after COVID that cost is a big issue. People don't have money, they don't have jobs. So when we talk about pivoting, we also need to think about how do we rearrange our services and products so that it's affordable, the people can actually keep themselves and us in business. And then I think the second one for me is customize. If you were used to having a package of offerings or services, how do you now customize what you're offering so that it suits the pockets of your client or your customer? And my challenge actually to Sipiwe is, when people can't afford the BMWs, have you got something cheaper? And then and then I think the next one for me would be capability. When I'm talking about capability, I think quite often we think that our qualifications, and that's why we have lots of unemployment as well. We think our qualifications are the only thing we need. I think we also need skills, and we've got to redefine the skills we need to survive in this current climate. And those skills are technical in some instances, but they're also those skills that we've kept referring to, the resilience type of skills, things that will make us last. And then consumption, I think we need to take note that the world is moving into a place where, as much as we'd like to buy all the fancy brands, from an affordability point of view, from an environmental point of view, and from the fact that we've got a whole generation of young people who are unemployed and probably have to buy cheaper, consumption patterns are likely to change. So how do we change our markets to suit a different world of consumption? And then conservation, as much, and I think it's very important to listen to what you say about localization. I think localization for us and for all countries actually is an important way to go. But bear in mind that Africa is rich in resources. So there will still be a lot of people coming to Africa to take our resources. And how, therefore, do we ensure that we operate in a conservationist kind of way? How do we ourselves look after our resource of land, our mineral resources, and all our other ecosystems, which are important commodities? How do we even take those commodities and transform them ourselves before we give them away, as we've tended to do in the past? And finally, capacity. And here I'm talking really about any opportunity to continue to grow our skills, but I'm also talking about the capacity to deliver on your promise. So if we've promised our customers something and we don't have enough hands and feet to do the work, Who do we need to partner with to do that? But from a skills perspective, one of the things that I'd like to share with you, just as a parting thing, is because my work is in the green space, we've got a free training course on green policy, just so that you understand where the world of green policy is headed. And I can hand out the link to you, Cindy, so that you can send it out to members. I think also probably South African, you can put it up there and get people hooked up, because I think we need to learn what green policy is saying, because that is going to drive our future. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much. You're right. My dearest sister, green policy, it's very important. It's definitely going to drive the future. I mean, as you've seen what is happening of late in terms of, preserving our nature. I mean, yesterday, it was the day before yesterday, it was the World Environment Day. So I think it's very important for us as well to make sure that we start where it begins, to understand what are the driving forces for the future, so that as businesses will be embedded in those, strategies, in those decisions that are actually taken global. I mean, if you look at the Paris Agreement, it's still, existing, and we're still driving it to make sure that we have a better place and a better world for all of us, and we preserve what is very important to be kept. Yes, my dear sister Diane.
Thank you, Sis Cindy. I think for me, the real takeaway for me would be like to put forward the partnership between public sector and the private sector. I think we can come up with all the strategies and all the plans possible, but then as long as we do not have a strong policies in place for business to strive, it will be a bit of a waste of time, because you need to be able to establish like strong foundations for business to be able to strive. And I think businesses, with their chairman, CEOs, need to find a way to sit at the table when those conversations are taking place, when it comes down to policies. So this is what I would like to highlight. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think that's very important, because collaboration is key now, especially with private sector and the policies that they come up with in terms of corporate social investment programs. They need to understand where government is moving, so that they speak to each other in terms of actually working in the community. I've seen that coming up very strongly, especially with COVID. If you look at what is happening in South Africa, for example, because I'll make an example about South Africa, because this is my home. I've seen what the Solidarity Fund has done. I've seen what the private sector has actually done in terms of actually putting money aside to make sure that they deliver the services, and how the NGOs are actually, applying to those services in communities at large. And I think what we're going to do, but that's going to be a way forward for this, webinar, we'll definitely look at a private and public partnership moving forward based on this discussion. Sister Noni, Lesotho.
Thank you so much. Yes, this was quite eye-opening for me as well. I took so much in. Thank you to everybody that was there. The information is quite important, and I'm sure even the viewers are actually taking notes. As a businesswoman, I am very passionate about business. I am passionate about other business people. And I think as a set of business women in Lesotho, we are going to forge partnerships with government entities, with our chambers of commerce, with our business people, because I think there is a disconnect between the entities, government, financial institutions, and the business people, even the clients. So there has to be some sort of a network whereby everybody's voice is heard, and there's a link. How can we address all the issues? Because I think right now everybody is working in silos. The government thinks businesses want this. The businesses think the customer wants this. And we are really not speaking to each other. So I think such platforms are going to be quite beneficial we need to be in serious discussions, because I think we are going to make policies that are addressing an issue. We are going to produce as business people what the consumer wants and the manner in which the consumer will want it. So I think this is an amazing session. Thank you so much, President. It was such an honor and a privilege to be part of this panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Advocate Noni. We're really humbled and honored and to have you in our platform, and also as our chairperson for the Circle of Global Business Women in Lesotho, and looking forward to the launch, and also the strategic partnerships between private sector and government and NGOs is very important, because collaboration is new competition. And I think it's very important for us to actually work together and collaborate, for us to have effective and high impact of programs on the ground, so that we talk to each other, we don't talk on top of each other. Even if when we want to assist women, private sector and government in terms of, there's something called enterprise development in South Africa. And how does the enterprise development in South Africa works very closely with our brother, Mr. Eustace Mashembe, with a Proudly South African program, when we know that there is a member for the Circle of Global Business Women is being assisted, for example, by BMW in terms of enterprise development in South Africa. And now this woman wants to take the product to the continent, and we have the Proudly South African responsible for the quality of the product, so that when the product goes out of South Africa, it's quality. And this is very simple, it's not complicated, but I think when we talk about it now, it really makes sense. But because we were sitting in our corners, working our strategies, running around trying to fix everything that at times we cannot even fix, but now I think we realize that it's very important for us to come together and really have a platform that really speaks, because I think for me, it's something that is called one-stop shop for women, owned entities in the marketplace. So they'll be able to actually tap on that. I mean, if it's a private company or it's a state-owned entity, we'll be able to actually have a solution moving forward. And then my brother Eustace.
Yes, thank you very much. I think my parting shot is that women in business should take a lead. It's important that women take a lead. We have been led by this other agenda for too long. We need women to take their rightful place. And organizations like ours are there to assist in ensuring that you access the market opportunities that you want. We know that you, as a new entrant, like I said, you cannot necessarily be trusted by those to whom you pitch your business to. And so that's where we come in to say to businesses, trust them. Trust this youth-owned business, this women-owned business, this Black-owned business. Even the white-owned businesses, for us, is about businesses that create jobs within this economy. Because we know that traditionally, based on the research that has been done, for every job that you create, there's 5 or 6 other people who benefit. I don't know what the exact number is now, who benefit from that one income. And so when a business does well, even if it's a male-owned business, if it does well, as long as it employs people within the borders of South Africa, what we're not looking for are people who are going to import products. One-man show, import products, change labels, deliver them. That you are not adding any value to this economy. You are not contributing to alleviating this poverty problem that we have in the economy. So we're saying to those of you who are business people who are brave enough to be in business, who have businesses that are able to expand if you support them, we are here to support you so that you can create much needed job opportunities and so that we can start dealing with this poverty problem. There are households where people don't know what they're going to feed their kids tonight in this cold weather. So let's help address that problem, and that's why we exist. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, my brother. You see, you always push us. It's good to have men in our platforms because they give our rightful position. So we don't back her, we don't struggle, Valerie. We are told that we must take our rightful position. So This is what we want in the marketplace, to lead and have our brothers pushing us to take our rightful positions, so that in the near future, we're talking about generation equality that is both, amazing between, sisters and brothers in the corporate environment. Thank you very much, my dearest brother. Looking forward working with you as the Circle of Global Businesswomen. We're coming back to you with a program that will actually, implement between the Circle and Proudly South Africa, and even, and to our provinces as well, since we're launching the Circle of Global Businesswomen in provinces. And the first province that we're going to launch is Free State. So we'll go with you to Free State. Thank you very much, my brother. Thank you so much. We're really humbled and honored to have you in the midst. Now we have our dearest sisters, Pure. What is your last parting shot to, our distinguished, listeners virtually?
Okay, Mrs. Green just said something personally to say what happens when those clients are not affording the brand or not affording the cars. Like I said earlier, well, the aim is to service, not to sell. Because when you sell, it's a matter of you have bought, then leave. When you service, it's a matter of you coaching. So it is also important when you are introducing the brand to a client, it's a matter of coaching you, creating the relationship, so that when the client has problems, that client will definitely come to you. So we are not saying you have bought, you are on your own. The nice part about the LMG group, we do have the pre-owned department as well, whereby if we see that now things are tougher on your side, we can look on our pre-owned department to say, okay, fine, this is what we can do to assist you, because the aim is to keep you within the brand regardless. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Pio, for the powerful, last parting, words. Is a representative for BMW South Africa, and we are really humbled and honored. And to my dearest sister Diane, as the Circle, APRM is our home. I mean, connecting in the continent, as I've said to you, that we're also sitting in the Women Trade Protocol task team with His Excellency Wamgele Mene. We need to talk about that and see how do we come up with a partnership that would really make tangible outcomes in terms of the Agenda 2063 and the implementation of the Africa Free Trade Agreement. But also the outcome of the session is to actually look at a digital, strategy for all our businesses out there, for women, and also for women to have confidence. I think what I've learned today, I think all of us have shared experiences about COVID, but the experiences out there, they're actually giving hope to those that are hopeless, to those that have lost businesses, to those that don't see their future. But with these, webinars, it gives them hope that they still hope up there, that they can still make it, even if no matter how tough it is, because what is important is actually the information that comes. What is important is the information sharing and the network that you actually have. With those words, I'd like to say my last parting shot. The outcome of this webinar is a private-public partnership, relationship between government and the private sector to actually assist women in terms of the digital economy, and also how do women pivot themselves to go up, as what Valerie has said, in the marketplace, so that they'll be able to actually sell their products. And how do we connect these government departments, those that assist women in the marketplace, so that they'll be able to actually sell their products on social media platforms, because I think that's very important for us as the Circle of Global Businesswomen, and hence these webinars, so that we can open eyes for our women members, we can open eyes for our partners, so that they can know that the Circle of Global Businesswomen is there, but also working with women on the ground to assist them to be better women, for the future, but also pivoting the pandemic. With those words, I would like to say thank you very much to everybody that was listening to us. It was really a great honor and a great pleasure to actually chair this session, and also listening to these gentle giants that presented today. We're really humbled and honored as the Circle of Global Businesswomen. I'd like to wish you all, the best in your endeavors, including our speakers, and also working, with you, not only in this webinar, but moving forward as the Circle of Global Business Women in collaboration with your organization, tackling the challenges that we have in the economy and also taking women to the next level globally. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye.